Hi, hello, how are you? Hope you're well. Let's jump straight into things and take a look at Reddit's dating over 30. First one, should I be more patient with attachment issues? I just think at 38 and female, it's time for me to just be happy with what I have and try to make things work with my recent ex. There literally aren't other options on the apps. I get about 2 unemployed or bots a day and the stack is otherwise empty. I go out every day and am involved socially. I meet men all the time and they're in relationships. So it has me thinking, am I being stupid here? I can't be the only person dealing with someone's attachment problems. Should I find a way to deal with it and stop expecting the stability of the boyfriends from my past? Sounds like you're asking 2 different questions here. He'd be considered fearful avoidant. Great guy, and the relationship started really well. In fact, it was the relationship moving toward marriage that kicked off the attachment problems, and I basically watched him sabotage his way through the last thread of connection with me. He still wants the relationship, but has built up so much resentment and contempt from his own outbursts and hypervigilance that he's stuck, and I'm exhausted over it. But it's generally better than the hell of dating, I'll be honest, because we have a nice life together, which I definitely don't have alone. I see a lot of boyfriends and husbands who seem like anyone I've dated. A lot of neurotic guys with wandering eyes. Surely they can't all be securely attached. What's the secret to having a relationship with them? How are you all dealing with insecure partners? What do you do with the outbursts and sabotage? It's either figure this out or likely miss my window. Update, thank you for all these really helpful comments. I'm realising that I'm just fighting a scarcity mindset due to the very limited dating options, and it's making me question my standards and my own healthy relationship skills. Like, if you can't beat them, join them. And sort of wondering if the requirement to be in a relationship at this age is to accept it as unhealthy. I really appreciate all the comments that are reminding me otherwise. Maybe it's a good reminder for all of us not to let that scarcity mindset creep in and stay positive. It sounds like more than a scarcity mindset to me. Like, what you're essentially saying is that you're not happy with this person, but you don't want to be alone, so you'll settle for them anyway, or like, should you settle for them anyway, which, sure, that's related to the scarcity problem, but I also think that's really disrespectful of the other person and also of yourself. Do you know what I mean? Because if you're just sticking with a person who clearly is also unhappy in the relationship, or even if they were happy in a relationship, but you don't actually want to be there, then you're wasting that other person's time. They could be in a much better, healthier, happier relationship, but instead they're stuck in one with a person who they don't even realise doesn't want to be with them either, and that they only just don't want to be alone. Like, how shitty is that, knowing, or even not knowing, like, just the situation? How shitty is it to be in a situation where someone only is with you because there's no one else? Like, you could be literally any fucking person on the planet. How special does that make you feel? How valued does that make you feel? Do you know what I mean? And it's also shitty and disrespectful to yourself, because why should you have to settle for unhappiness? Why should you have to be in a relationship that isn't good for you? And even if, like, I don't want to call OP a shitty person, but even if you are the kind of person who to be like so disrespectful to someone else, you might say, oh, well, they don't deserve to be happy or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that's true. I think that people who don't treat other people well are usually very unhappy within themselves and probably don't treat themselves very well either. Do you know what I mean? So I think that if someone can be happier, they're less likely to be dicks. I don't know this for a fact. There's no science that I'm aware of, but I just think that that fucking makes sense. Because if someone is happy and secure and living a good life in themselves, they don't feel the need to be mean to other people. They don't feel the need to trap people in like nasty relationships. You know what I mean? Maybe that's a bit much, like maybe this person isn't trapping them, but do you know what I mean? It seemed like, I mean, they're talking about them being their ex, but they're also talking about leaving. So are they the ex? Are they not the ex? Were they previously an ex, then you got back together? I don't believe in exes getting back together anyway. I've never heard of it working out. So yeah, should you be more patient with attachment issues? I think you've decided that attachment issues are the problem. Maybe it is the problem in this case, but that doesn't mean that it's generally going to be the case for everyone. Do you know what I mean? That's serious. Like, you're taking your bags with you everywhere. So should you be more patient? See, if you'd said anything about actually wanting to be with this person, anything about actually liking them and wanting to make it work, then I would say, sure, try to be a bit more patient, try to be more understanding, maybe try therapy or something like that. But you haven't even expressed any desire to be with this person, to be honest. And that's why I think that it's beyond the scarcity thing. And I just think that it's not cool, to be honest. I don't think you should be together anyway. And it seems like, yeah, so there literally aren't any options on the apps. You go out every day, you're meeting people, etc. But then they say, we have a nice life together, which I definitely don't have alone. So do you have the life together, or do you not have the life together? Or are you actually together, but you're low-key trying to find someone else as a replacement? Do you know what I mean? I think that's just a generally shitty situation, and you should break up, honestly. Which I'm not a fan of people just coming on and saying, like, yeah, break up. But it sounds like you don't even like this person, to be honest, and you're not being respectful. So, yeah. That's my opinion on that. Is that too much? Like, is that a bit harsh? Let me know in the comments. I think it's fine, obviously, or else I wouldn't say it. Next. Craving affection but not ready to date. I've been single for 2 years now, and 7 months ago moved to a new country, new city. Well, how can you move to a new country without moving to a new city? But whatever. I've avoided men mainly because I want to focus on building my career. During Easter weekend, I met this guy. He's quite handsome, but I also got the vibe that he's not the relationship type. We've hung out 3 times since, including a sleepover at his apartment. I've not done anything with him, even though he clearly wanted to get in my pants. I wanted to give myself time to think about what it is I want from this situation, since I'm sure he doesn't want a relationship, and one of his friends has told me he changes girls all the time. The morning I slept over at his place was also the morning of my birthday. He sang for me and then proceeded to make me breakfast. He also cooked for me every time we hang out. Now, I'm thinking it might be a bad idea to just have fun with him during the summer. Plus, we also love working out together, which also adds to an element to the relationship. You've only hung out 3 times together, but like it seems as if you've done so much activities together. Okay, fair enough. How should I initiate this conversation with him, as I'd like to be transparent? Edit, we met at an Easter brunch where I was invited by the friend of his who warned me against him, so we didn't meet on an app. I'll take the advice of the people who have told me to tell him what I want and hear what he wants. I also have realised that I may have judged him too harshly, too quickly due to my own past experiences, but I also trust the fact that I'm noticing some of the toxic signs I have exhibited in similar situations in the past. One of them being anxious about telling him, wanting to keep a distance but wanting to get close at the same time because I crave affection but fear that I'll get hurt if I get attached. When I sleep at his place, I slept on the couch while he went to sleep in his bedroom, but this wasn't before he made multiple attempts to engage sexually, but after I was clear I don't want that, he respected it and went to sleep. It's just been very confusing, to be honest, because he's not exhibited traits of a typical player, even though my gut tells me he may be one. For example, last week he invited me for a run. I thought he was just using that as a front to get me to his place, but no, when I got there he changed and really wanted to go for a run. This is good. After the exercise, I told him I was hungry and he cooked, but he still tried to get me to sleep over. I was tempted, but ultimately decided it was better to head home instead, and I did. He does cute things, which I don't know if they're genuine or if he's just trying to butter me up so he can sleep with me. So, you're craving affection, but you're not ready to date. I don't think you've asked a question. It's a bit confusing because your title says that you're the one who's not ready to be dating, so I'm thinking then, okay, go away, work on yourself, find a different kind of affection, give yourself affection, find affection from friends, etc. Or, you know, just chat with people and let them know that you're not looking for it to go anywhere. But then in your in the body of the post, it seems as if maybe you do want to be in a relationship, but you just don't think this guy wants to be, or that you do want something regular, as in like, not repetitive, but do you know what I mean, like frequent, not regular as in normal, but you know, regular in frequency, but you just don't think this is the guy to do it with. Which is like, I mean, let's deal with one thing at a time. So like I say, if you're craving affection but not ready to date, then don't date. You know, don't do that shit until you're ready, because I don't think it's fair to anybody and it's not going to help you. It's not going to end well. In regards to this guy, I agree with apparently what's been posted before or what's been commented before. Like, just talk to him about it. I always say, don't wonder, just ask. So I would just bring it up in conversation, just like maybe, I mean, he seems to be initiating sexual activities with you, so he's obviously like somehow attracted to you. The next thing that happens, just say, look, let's have a chat before we go any further. This is the way I'm feeling. This is what I want, and this is the impression I get from you. But you know, I don't want to assume anything. How do you feel about the situation? What are you looking for? Can we find some sort of common ground here? Obviously, that doesn't mean he's necessarily going to be truthful, because there are people out there who not necessarily butter you up, but do seem nice until they sleep with you and then they're gone, which is really shitty. You shouldn't do that. So just because you're direct and upfront doesn't mean that he's not still going to lie to you, unfortunately. But at least then you will have had the conversation, and at least then, like, if he's not being truthful, that's on him, rather than it being that you've made a mistake just because you didn't bother to ask. Do you know what I mean? On the other hand, it might be that, you know, he's open. It might be that, yeah, he's, you know, kind of been going from person to person in the past, but that's just been circumstantial. He's not found someone that he wants to, you know, stay with any longer than that. So yeah, give him the chance to explain himself rather than taking it from someone else. But at the same time, do go with your gut. Because as I say, it's all well and good what he says, but it's not necessarily the truth. And I, from my personal experience, tend to find that in the situations where I didn't trust my gut, I was like, I fucking should have trusted my gut. Do you know what I mean? And also, I feel like if you still have a niggling feeling, then you're not going to feel completely comfortable and relaxed around him. So then you're probably going to be like insecure, leading to actions that you don't want. For example, like craving being with him, but also avoiding him, etc., etc. So yeah, have the talk and take it from there. And also remember that just dating doesn't have to be sleeping with someone. You can also like take it slow and not get physical, but still spend time together. You can also just be friends and see how that goes. And after a while, you feel like, yeah, actually this is a good guy, I'm attracted to him. Then you can start something up. Do you know? There's a lot of ways to approach it, but the most important thing is to have the conversation, for sure. Next, staying classy but firm after a breakup. Okay. I consider this primarily in the context of romantic relationships, but would also include non-romantic relationships like friendships. How do you stay classy after a breakup where you were a dumpy and the other person did you dirty, but remain firm with your boundaries that this person does not have access to you anymore? I'm asking this because there's a very slim chance that I might run into my ex, which I'm not looking forward to, but it could happen due to the setting where we met. I realise I could be very petty and sarcastic, but I really don't want to behave like that because I think it would show that they still got the upper hand. And it's also really immature and childish, right? It's not going to make you happy. I don't think making snide comments or whatever, being generally petty, is the kind of thing that's going to make you feel better about yourself. Anyway, what's the best way to be conventionally polite, but let them know that they cannot be a part of your life due to what they've done? Edit. First and foremost, thank you guys for your kind responses. It's truly positively overwhelming. I feel like I needed to give a bit more context to my situations. So the story, friend. It happened more than 2 years ago with a colleague of mine. We both work at the same institute. He's a professor and I'm a PhD candidate. He's more than twice as old as me. Y'all know what I'm thinking, right? Are you thinking it too? Moving on. We just worked together on a topic which is a part of my dissertation. Then we started spending time outside of work environment. I mean, I also made some mistakes along the way, and the fact that I still believe in friendship between men and women after his story is a miracle in itself. I don't like diagnosing people, but in this case, I suspect that he has some narcissistic traits, especially because I also learned from other people that he treated them the same way in the end. Long story short, after 6 months of abusive attitude, constant goalpost shifts, and just generally very strange vibe, I literally stormed out of his apartment one evening, slammed the door and blocked him everywhere. He attempted multiple times to reconcile, from sending a written letter to me to asking other people at our office to let me know he wanted me to approach him, but I never gave in. Some 5 months ago, a mutual colleague of ours kind of started acting as a mediator between us, although his efforts were pretty lackluster. We went out together, 3 of us, for a dinner a couple of times. Why are you involving other people in your relationship? Both of you are involving other people, and I think that's just fucking messy for a start, okay? But I literally experienced no emotions towards him now, neither good or bad. One time he was at our office and the three of us were discussing something. I said something and he replied, "That's one of the very few instances where you were right." And in my mind, I was like, "Oh, you piece of shit. This story literally didn't teach you anything." Maybe it was a joke. Maybe he thought that you were okay again when actually you didn't think that you were and he was just making a joke. Or maybe he was just a dick. Like I know he said that to get on my nerves, but I was calmer about that than I expected. I would still have liked to put him in his place at that particular situation, but since our big story is literally over, I'm pretty chill about it. Story 2, the situationship. How long does this go on for? Okay, there's just one more story. This happened quite recently, 4 months ago. I met a guy through okay, so it's two separate people. I met a guy through a volunteering activity that he decided to join. I'd been part of it for much longer. He's also a master's student at my university and 4 years younger. He asked me out the second time we saw each other. At the third date, he asked me what I was looking for, to which I said a committed relationship. To which he replied, "Oh, I'm also looking for a closed, monogamous, committed relationship." So I was like, yay, we're on the same page. Fast forward 6 weeks after that, by the time we had 10 dates together, he comes back from a 2-week-long Christmas vacation, and to my surprise, I learned that not only are we not together, we are not even exclusive. And I was like, what the fuck? Did you have the conversation though? You can't just assume you need to have the conversation. Just because you said it at the very beginning, that's what I'm looking for, doesn't mean that's what we're doing right now. Clarity. I have to admit, I'm pretty bad with reacting to things like that on the spot, but I felt like a rug was completely pulled from under my feet because I was under the impression that we were heading towards boyfriend-girlfriend, heading and almost there, almost, that's the fucking difference. Do you know what I mean? You can't be mad because you thought that you were going somewhere and then you didn't, and then be like, "Oh, but I thought we were." Like, sorry, but you weren't. I know that I should have left him the minute I heard it, but as I said, I normally go into freeze mode when something like this happens. I was even okay with continuing to see him. Girl, why? But then 3 days later, he basically called everything off, saying that becoming a boyfriend would be too much of a commitment right now, he could not concentrate on his studies, and that he simply met the right person at the wrong time. Does he mean you or the other person? The thing that pissed me the most about this entire situation is that he basically tried to gaslight me into thinking that my idea that we were going to be an item was not grounded in reality in any way, and that he basically had nothing to do with my fantasies. Not to say that I didn't let some things slip through the cracks on both sides, but he definitely did more than someone who just looks for a regular hookup would. I think the thing that bugs me the most is not that he did me dirty, but that I practically did not stand up for myself and just listened to his version as if it were the truth. Retrospectively, I think this was just a bunch of BS. After that conversation, I actually wanted that he block me because I had a temptation of reaching out, but I never did in the end. Why do people just block? Delete the number. Or is this whole thing where people don't take numbers anymore, they just communicate on Instagram, which is totally stupid. I don't get that. Why don't people use phone numbers anymore? Oh. After that conversation, I actually wanted to, he blocked me. But 2 weeks later, I ended up blocking him on every platform we had contact, which is just too long. I was afraid I might run into him again at the volunteer group, but it seems that he won't show up there ever again, which is exactly what he told me during our last conversation, but he never told our boss that he won't participate anymore. But it seems that he's not going to be there anymore. We might still potentially run into each other because we live 5 minutes apart, and I regularly go to the supermarket that is right under his apartment, but so far it hasn't happened. I just hate that I let this dude live in my head rent-free for 3 months. So, how do you stay classy but firm in a breakup? Girl, okay, let's take this one at a time. So, it's good that you want to stay classy but firm. This is good. I like that you're asking this question, okay? In the first situation, I don't think you should have been involving other people in your relationship. He started it, but that's not the point. That's just like, it's just generally messy. It's immature. It's like when you're at primary school and it's like, "Oh, my friend fancies you. Do you want to go out with my friend?" Like, please. It seemed at first that he wanted to get back with you. So then I can understand why you're like, I'm staying firm. I'm keeping with my boundaries or whatever. That I can understand. But it seems as if that kind of stopped, and now it's a situation where you kind of interact with each other, but you don't have any feelings towards him. He doesn't seem to be trying to get with you anymore, so I don't think there's that need to stay firm anymore, but maybe you're asking for from before. I don't know. And if you're asking for from before, then I wouldn't have let that friend fucking mediate the situation. Like, just say no. Just say no. Then the next story, the situationship. Like I say, to be honest, I'm kind of like, not to take sides, but I understand the guy's side more than I understand OP's side, to be honest. Because just because you say to someone, yes, I'm also looking for a committed relationship, doesn't mean that right now we are in a long-term committed exclusive relationship. It just means that in general is what I'm looking for, that's what I'm hoping for, but it doesn't mean that I'm committed to you right now. Do you know what I mean? And just because you're looking for that doesn't mean that you might not also end up in a bit of like a friends with benefits situation in the meantime while you do find that person that you want to be with long term. Do you know what I mean? So you can't just assume, you know, and just because someone wants to just have hookups doesn't mean they can't also be nice to you and treat you with respect, and so on and so forth. Do you know what I mean? So I think that there were honestly some big assumptions made on OP's part. And I think that if you wanted to be in that exclusive relationship with him already, then you should have explicitly had that conversation. And the fact that you even say, we were almost boyfriend and girlfriend, we were almost at that point, means that you also know, really, that you weren't there. So why are you mad? Do you know, like, I get that you're like, oh, that's a bit shit. Like, I thought that we were heading that place. Oh, well, too bad. But saying that he did you dirty, I feel like that's just something people say these days, like young people. Oh, he did me dirty. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think he did, because he never said that you were exclusive. And then he did actually have the balls to come back to you a few days or weeks later and say, do you know what, this isn't for me. I think it's totally fine as well to be like, this is what I want in general, but right now I'm too busy for it. Right now I want to concentrate on my studies, I want to concentrate on work, I've got health issues, whatever. I think that's also totally, completely fair. So, yeah. But in general, how do you stay classy but firm after a breakup? If, for example, you didn't have any hard feelings towards someone, but you knew that low-key they wanted to get back with you and that they would totally sleep with you if they had the chance. If it's that kind of situation, but you know you're going to have interactions because, then acknowledge their existence, but don't proactively approach them. Like, if you're not wanting to be friends with them, but you just want to be, you know, classy, then if they're like, you know, if they approach the group that you're in, say hi, don't like ignore them, don't be like, oh, yeah, well, that's not the way I heard it or whatever, and, you know, don't be making comments and stuff like that. Treat them like any other person, just don't actively make an effort to talk to them, but don't ignore them, don't be mean to them or whatever. And if they are like making signals that they want to go a certain way, just be like, look, I can kind of see where this is going and I'm not interested. Like, I have no hard feelings towards you whatsoever. Like, I'm fine with seeing you at these, you know, social gatherings, but like, it's over. You know, just say it on a no uncertain terms. Or if you're not comfortable, like, saying that, because then it you know, it does quite boldly, it does quite explicitly say, hey, I know what you're trying to do here, stop it. If you're not wanting to go down that route, you could just say like, hey, the way that you're talking to me right now is kind of making me a little bit uncomfortable. Like, we obviously have this history and I just want to put it behind me. Do you know what I mean? So close the door in that way. Like, don't say that you're trying to do something, but just, this is how I feel right now and I would prefer not to feel that way. Do you know what I mean? Cool. Next one. The guy I'm dating for 3 months called me stupid as a joke, even though I expressed to him that I don't like being called names. So with the guy I'm seeing for 3 months, we once played a video game together and had a little bit of teasing and banter. I know for me personally that I like to tease, but I'd never use words like idiot or dumb because I feel it as too disrespectful, even if I know it's only a joke. Fair enough. I expressed my feeling towards that and he said he didn't notice and it's part of his playfulness. I told him I understand, no harm intended, but it makes me feel uncomfortable. He said he'll take note of it. Fast forward a few weeks, and once again during a small banter he called me stupid. Once again, I know it was a joke, but this time it even annoyed me more because I've already expressed my desire not to be called those names for each other. I really try to understand if I'm being too sensitive or is he crossing the line by not respecting my boundaries. I would like to get your perspective on the matter. Thank you. The post has been locked. I wonder why. Since the OP has failed to participate in their own thread. Oops. Sorry, I don't know what I'm doing with my buttons today. I don't think you're being too sensitive to say, I don't like using words like that, and I would appreciate if you wouldn't use those words to describe me or in my company. I just don't like it. I think that's completely fair. That's like setting a boundary and saying, I'm not comfortable with this. Please don't do it. Him saying, I'll take note of that is good. He receives that. He will try and take that into consideration. However, one time he said it again. I think it's fair to assume that that was just an accident, that it was just like a reflexive thing, that he didn't think about it. Do you know what I mean? That he didn't realise that he even said it. I think that you weren't being too sensitive to say I don't like it, but you are being a bit sensitive to be like, he's not respecting my boundaries. Like, I know you're not actually doing that, you're just asking the question, but I think it would be too sensitive to assume that he's just then ignoring your boundaries, disrespecting the fact that you've requested him not to do that. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's most likely that he just didn't realise, he forgot, it was an accident, whatever, in which case I would just say like, hey, you know how I feel about that word? And then he'd probably say like, oh shit, sorry, totally didn't realise, didn't mean to call you that, that's not what I meant. Do you know what I mean? So I would say just like let him know again. Because for example, do you know what just popped into my head what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like if a person is trans and they use pronouns that are different to their assigned gender at birth, it's completely like okay and like not automatically seen as a bad thing if you accidentally misgender the person. Shit happens, you're used to saying a certain thing, and then you realise that someone, you know, doesn't want you to call them by something, but it's still kind of baked into your memory, so you occasionally do it by accident, but that's not what you mean, and just until you get used to that different, you know, way of referring to them, then you might make a few mistakes. Do you know what I mean? I think, like we talked about in previous videos, I was going to say like we talked about earlier, but that was in my last video, intent matters. So I think that if it was an accident, then give him a chance. But if he's like, do you know what, like I called you an idiot or I called you stupid because I think you are stupid, I think what you asked me to do was stupid and I'm not going to change, then I think that would be shitty. Okay? But I think, yeah, just talk to him about it. I think it's probably just an accident. I cannot seem to connect with men. Putting this thread into dating, as I feel like this issue is hindering my dating life a lot, but to be fair, this holds true for friendships as well. I cannot seem to connect with men, straight men specifically. I'm in my early 30s, have a good social circle, and always had solid, long, healthy relationships with female friends. I'm also really close with 2 gay friends as a couple, which I consider almost family. However, I was never able to form friendships with guys. Not at school, uni, not growing up. I have a very small family and all my cousins etc. are girls my age, not in the dating space either. I've been single now for 7 years. Had a few really painful situationships that degraded for quite a long time, the last of which ended in October, and that has truly been heartbreaking for me and has changed my outlook on many aspects of my life for the worse. I've done some thinking and I realise I always fall into the category of the woman who is great to fuck with, but that men don't form any emotional connection to. This happens also when sex isn't on the table for the first few dates, by the way. I tick a lot of boxes, good looking, accomplished, good career, educated, has interests, etc. But men don't seem to enjoy spending time with me if sex isn't involved. Aside from a 2-year relationship in my early 20s, no one else was ever interested in spending time with me if sex wasn't on the table. It gets to the point where if someone wanted to spend time with me just for the sake of it, I would be genuinely surprised, as I'm not used to being seen as anything more than a sexual object. I know it's really sad, but this is what's happened so far. I cannot connect emotionally. I mean, I do, but they don't reciprocate. It's like I'm completely invisible and they wouldn't miss me at all if I wasn't there. I think to an extent it links to the fact that I'm not able to become friends with men while it comes very easily and natural with women. There's always a level of awkwardness and distance. I notice this even with male colleagues. I don't know what's wrong with me. I've been in therapy for other major issues in my life, but clearly this hasn't been resolved. Have you been in therapy specifically for this though? You need to get more specific. I've been back to a few dates recently and it's always the same. Pleasant date, we talk, etc. I'm engaged, ask questions, but I can see they don't give a fuck and never even ask for a second one. I truly feel like there's something inherently wrong with me, and it's leading me to feel absolute rubbish about myself, and also because I would love to have more guys in my life, as friends too, but I'm just not able, it seems. So I need you to ask for a few pointers on how I can change this. Guys, what leads you to emotionally bond with a woman, friends and romantic? What makes you repulsed by someone? What would you recommend me to do in this situation? Well, I'm not a guy, so am I still allowed to answer your question? You've only given us a certain amount of information, so I'm kind of forced to make a lot of assumptions about you and your life. I think this goes beyond, like, I can't seem to connect with men, they won't reciprocate. I'm gonna, again, make big assumptions and guess that you're giving off something. Because if this is like the pattern that you see all the time, then I don't want to say, yeah, it's you, but part of it is, do you know what I mean? Like in any relationship, in any communication, it involves more than one person and each person has their part to play in that. So it could be that you, for example, that you have a subconscious issue with men, which might just be like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Do you know what I mean? It might be that because you feel like you can't connect with men, that's why you can't connect with men. It could be that you always seem to go for the wrong type of men. Maybe you're, subconsciously more comfortable with the type of man who's emotionally unavailable, and that's why you keep going for those kind of men. Because maybe the type of men that you consciously want to meet and be involved with, either romantically or just as friends, maybe that actually makes you very uncomfortable when you come across that because you're not used to it. It's the same if people are used to being in bad relationships. They seem to gravitate towards other people who are also bad for them and also get into unhealthy relationships with, because that's what they're used to and that's what they're comfortable with. And when someone treats them well, that makes them very uncomfortable because they're not used to it. It could be this similar situation, but on a different sort of level. So what would I advise? As I say, try specifically talking about this in therapy. Try and drill it down. Try and notice the patterns that are going on, not just with like, yeah, I'm trying to communicate and I'm good at these things or whatever, but they keep doing this. Try and find other patterns and why that person, why were you interested in that person, why were you drawn to that person, how did it start, how did it end, what similarities are there, what was your attitude towards it, how did you feel about it, how did you respond, just to try and figure out what is the root cause of this, because everything has a root cause, right? So yeah, I mean, what did you ask? What leads you to be emotionally bonded with a woman and what makes you repulsed by someone? This is clearly coming from the feeling bad about yourself part. I don't think that people are repulsed by you just based off what you said. Some people just don't click. That's always going to happen, even if you're not giving off a vibe, even if you don't have insecurities about this topic. Some people just don't click. It doesn't mean that they're repulsed by it. It doesn't mean they think you're a terrible person. It just sometimes doesn't work out. Do you know what I mean? So it could also be that you've just had a series of unfortunate attempts. But yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like, I am currently trying to make more friends because I don't have many friends. Like I have a lot of acquaintances, but I don't have many people I would call friends. I have even fewer closer friends, and most of my close friends are not physically located in the same place as I am. So I would like to make more friends, expand my circle, have more than just acquaintances. I really struggle with that for various reasons, mainly just being awkward and not knowing how to do it. Like not knowing how to make the transition between acquaintance and actual friend. And sometimes I feel like I just want it too much. Sometimes I feel like I am approaching it in a different way to how I approach like romantic relationships. Don't like that word romantic, but you know what I mean, like partner relationships. Because in partner relationships, I'm very clear about what I want and I have my boundaries. And if I'm not into someone, I'm not into them. But when it comes to trying to make friends, I'm so eager to make friends that even if there's no spark, that it doesn't click, that I feel like this person is difficult to talk to, I'll still try and make it work and give them a chance anyway, when actually I know that it's not going anywhere. So I feel like maybe this is a similar kind of situation, maybe you're trying to pursue stuff that doesn't really have any seeds to grow from in the first place. So yeah, try and identify some patterns, talk about it in therapy and go from there. Second last one. In fact, I'm going to skip this one just for time reasons because it's a friend telling them that you can do better. Let's be honest, you probably can. If your friend's telling you can do better, you can probably do better. What's the last one? How do I get over this fear that the date will disappoint or abandon me once he sleeps with me? Dating has been rough for me. My 33-year-old, I'm a 33-year-old female, and my ex, who I thought was the one to be my partner forever, cheated on me behind my back. Knew this after 9 months. He constantly messaged his ex saying he misses her, etc. He was clearly not over her. So this hurt more than physical cheating. I loved him with all my heart, yet I couldn't be enough to replace her. Well, you don't want to be someone's replacement, so that's your first mistake. After 1 year of being single, I dated this guy from Bumble. He was very good looking. I was constantly asking myself why he's single, and I met him a couple of times and then slept with him. Maybe I was physically attracted to him a lot, so couldn't think straight. Yeah, you're making assumptions based on just the way that he looks. Just because someone looks good doesn't mean that he's not a shitty person, therefore why is he single? Like, do you know what I mean? Anyway. When I asked for a relationship, I think he got scared or met another person, and he gave me some reasons and basically never heard back from him again. So this hurt a lot. Now I'm back in the dating pool. I met this person from Bumble. He took initiative, planned our first date. His profile says relationship. I clearly told him my intentions. He wanted to kiss during the first date. I said no as we first met. Second date, I said I wanted to get some fresh air, low-key date. He planned this whole picnic, brought all the amazing cheeses, salamis, breads. They were delicious. No physical contact whatsoever, which I appreciated. Also told that these sessions were getting to know each other rather than date. Third date. So you're saying it's not a date, but there is also a date. Third date, I said let's go for a run together. I know he hates running, but he said let's do it anyway. That's a bit inconsiderate. So I'm a bit confused on what his intentions are. How should I know his true intention? Any tips? Or am I over-invested here and overthinking? I can't help but be suspicious on him. FYI, I can't date multiple people. It's not my thing. And I've tried it and it was too exhausting. Update 2. After second date 5 days later, I texted him asking him out for dinner. I said, how about I take you out for dinner because your favourite soccer team lost? I didn't get any response. 1 day has passed. So yes, I'm glad I took it slow and my fear/concern has been validated and appear to be true. My takeaway, dating is incredibly challenging. What's your question? How do I get over this fear that the date will disappoint or abandon me once he sleeps with me? Dating is challenging. It's challenging for a lot of people, regardless of who you are, what you look like, what gender you are, etc. I kind of feel like in the first story you told us, you did it the wrong way around. You slept with the guy and then you asked for a relationship. So then the second time around, you made your intentions clear first and you didn't sleep with him. Good. Seems like you learned from your mistake there. However, what was it you asked? Am I over-invested here and overthinking? I think you are over-invested. You say that you're not dating, you're just trying to get to know the person, yet you call them dates. But I think you are investing too much. I think you're going into it already hoping and expecting that it's going to be something rather than just taking it for what it is. Expectations lead to resentment. And I think that you're expecting something to come out of these dates. And you also are insecure that you won't have your expectations met. And then when your negative expectations are met, because you also have negative expectations, then that reaffirms to yourself, okay, this is why I have these insecurities, this is why, etc., etc. I get not wanting to date multiple people at the same time. I think that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Although I'm guessing people have suggested it, and I can get why they would suggest it, because maybe if you're dating multiple people at the same time, then there's less individual investment, there's more of a spread for your focus. How do you get over this fear? I think part of it is in the setup. So, like you say, or like you started to do, be very upfront from the start. This is what I'm looking for, this is what I want. And just so you know, for the first X dates, we won't be doing anything physical. because I just want to get to know you. And to be honest, I've had some bad experiences where we have got physical and then it was quite clear that was all they were looking for, despite what I told them. You know, just be completely upfront and honest about that. And if they're a dick about it, then that's on them. Do you know what I mean? How do you get over the fear that they'll disappoint or abandon you? I mean, I think if you set it up in the right way, that's gonna give you a little bit of a buffer, right? If someone is like, nah, I'm not into this, I don't want to wait for however long to sleep with you, or actually I just wanted to sleep with you, but if that's not what you want, then it's not for me. I think that will filter out a lot of people from the start. If you're just really honest about that from the beginning, then I think a lot of people will fall away, which is a good thing. So then the people that are left over, how do you get over the fear that they will still disappoint and abandon you? There's always going to be people that'll lie. There's always going to be people who, regardless of what you said, will still just sleep with you and abandon you regardless. Unfortunately, that's just the risk you take sometimes. Don't forget, you can also just not sleep with them. I mean, for how long, that's completely your personal choice, but it doesn't mean to say, okay, after like 5 dates, then okay, you sleep with them. Do you know what I mean? It has to be based off a feeling with the other person. Do you know what I mean? Like, what kind of connection do you have? Do you trust that person? Do you think that they respect you? Are they making you feel insecure? Because if they're making you feel insecure, if you don't trust them, if you have a bad feeling, don't sleep with them. Do you know what I mean? Because that's going to end badly and it's not going to make you feel good about yourself in general. Like, if someone, even if you don't sleep with the person, if someone is making you feel that way, they're not the one for you anyway. But if you are feeling good about them, if they make you feel comfortable, if you know they're nice to you, they're respectful, etc., and then you decide, yeah, okay, I'm gonna try, let's be physical, then that's like a conscious decision that you're making based off good things. Hopefully that'll be okay, and if it's not okay, that's on them, not on you. But getting over the fear, I think it's like the self-fulfilling prophecy thing, you know, if it keeps happening to you, then it keeps happening to you. I think if you do the right setup and get more experience and be more accepting of the fact that some people will just not be into it, and also be accepting of the fact that I'm going to go on this date and it might not turn out well, but it might be great. Let's just see what happens. I think if you go in with more of like an open mind, then it could go better for you, again, because of not only because of the vibes that you're giving off, but also the way that you communicate and whatnot. I think by getting more of these experiences and having less negative experiences, then that will help to show your brain that, hey, it's not bad all the time. It's not always great, but it's not always bad. And then slowly that fear will start to go away. The disappointment, of course, you're going to be disappointed, like that's natural. Even if you're okay with it, there's always a little bit of disappointment, you know what I mean? A little bit of like, oh, that sucks. So disappointment is a normal emotion, as is fear. But with the disappointment, I feel like that's just normal. You're going to feel disappointed. But with the fear, I think that is something that you can work to overcome by doing the things that I just mentioned. Okay? What do you all think about that? How did you find these stories? What advice would you give? Do you agree with what I said, or do you think I'm just talking absolute bullshit? Let me know in the comments down below. I do hope that you enjoyed this episode. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you again in the next one. Bye bye, bye bye, bye.